Now you start. Yes.
It's coming?
Yeah.
Okay. Finally. Good afternoon. We'll get started. Sorry for the delay. Yeah. So we started this program 10 weeks ago. So thank you for this opportunity. I'll start and I'll introduce my team here. We already met, but again, myself, Rajshekhar, along with me, Chaitanya. Then we have Yash and Krupal. So we four have been working from past 10 weeks on this program. And this is the agenda which we have set for this week, wherein we'll start with the project overview, of course. I'll skip through this because we already have been discussing. And then we'll be talking about the Chicago, in terms of feedback, what we had on the infrastructure and what is the summary. And then we'll be talking about the EV charging station guidelines and what is the recommendations to City of Chicago. Thereafter, we'll be talking about what is the charging standards which we should look into it, most probably from the public charging perspective. Thereafter, we'll be talking about the parking and signages, and then the future work and what is the final recommendation from our side. So that's the whole agenda. I'll be running through it. So essentially, again, the project overview, we know the goal of transitioning into public fleet to 100% electric by 2040. That's the goal which City of Chicago has taken. So for this, we need to have an EV framework and answering the complex questions which we had, prioritizing the equity approach as well. So with that approach, we had our project schedule. In that project schedule, we started with 1st of April, and then we have been having several rounds of discussion. And then finally, today, the 3rd of June, the final discussion and final closure. So that's the whole schedule we wanted to just have and highlight. With that further ado, I just wanted to start on section 1, which is City of Chicago's current landscape. So to understand the City of landscape, we had the current scenario of EV vehicle sales month on month, which we consolidated from 2017 till 2022. And thereafter, we were trying to understand what are the number of EV charging stations which are there today, which City of Chicago has given us the data and observations. Thereafter, the idea here was to consolidate and classify them based on zip code wise segregation. And then we also wanted to estimate that what is the growth on the EV sales and how can we connect them with the public charging stations. So essentially, is there any relationship between the EV sales as well as the public charging station? And one particular charging station should satisfy how many EV, in that particular zone or locality. So when we are trying to do that, so City of Chicago currently had an 85 zip codes which are being mentioned on different aspects. So we are trying to see in different aspects of 85 zip codes, where are we in terms of public charging stations and where we don't have. With that, if you see, the electric vehicles were registered in every community and every zip code. So that is one observation which we saw. So it means that there is an acceptance and there is a sale happening at every zip code. But when you see the public chargers, we don't see them. Only 45 out of the 85 zip codes, which is 6060 cities, have public charging stations, and the rest do not. Most public chargers are located in only 3 or 4 communities. That's the other observations we can see here. So if you see what are the 3 or 4 communities, we already discussed. They are like Westham, Lincoln Park, and Loop, and so on and so forth. With that as a context, we were trying to see what is that those communities. We also had the recap that 60601 is Loop, then near west side, south side, near north side. So these are different areas, but if you see, mostly are concentrated on one side. So essentially, the message here is definitely we need to focus in terms of equitable distribution because there are higher number of chances that more distribution you'll have more boost in sales as well. So let's get into some numbers. When we are trying to see this, we could see that there are 259 charging locations in City of Chicago today. The zip codes are from 60601 till 60666. And out of those 259, we also could see that out of those 885 pin codes, only 45 had the charging stations, which I could see. And if you see the number here, so what we can see here is 601, 606, 7, and 11. You will see they are more than 15 in number, and the others are lesser in number. Is it good? Is it bad? We are trying to understand that what is the ideal number in terms of City of Chicago should, kind of say. So at least a number 10 is recommended in one zip code. So that's the number we are trying to understand based on different geographical locations and different benchmarks. So it's a number which is coming in. That can be a start point for Chicago to start with. And we should also aim in bringing up the other zip codes which are not at least to a 10, so that there is an equal distribution to start off with. So that would be the other observation which I wanted to point out from this slide. So the next logical thing was, now that we understand that we have these number of charging stations, we also wanted to understand what type of charging it is happening. So predominantly level 2 charging, that's the type of charging which is being used in the zip codes from 601 to 60666. And as you can see here, these three zip codes, 606, 7, and 11, has more than 50 number of charge ports. But there are other which doesn't have more than the 50 number of charge ports. So again, the logical thing for us would be to distribute them among equals, and then also focus on level 2 and DC fast charge. That's the next logical step. So yes, please.
The previous graph, when it says, yeah, the NAS is number of stations.
Yes.
Station is a location with numerous.
Absolutely. So yes, so 259 will have 2 or 3 or 4 charging ports based on their specifications. That's right. Yes. So again, okay, now that we understand the location, so 622 number of level 2 chargers we saw. So what is the service provider? Who is providing the service? So essentially, we have different service providers. So ChargePoint is the leading service provider in city of Chicago. As we know, more than 260 plus charging points they are providing. And we have 96 number of DC fast charge, and only 1 or 2 level 1 charges which are coming in. So is it good? Is it bad? We'll be talking about that as well. But that's the current landscape in terms of the city of Chicago's current scenario. So with that, what we thought, we saw what we have today. We were also trying to understand that what will happen in the next 5 or 7 or 10 years. So essentially, we used winter forecast method, which is Holt's-and winter forecasting method. And we plotted from November 17 till February 22. We were trying to see what is the trend and in terms of what is the growth rate. So if you can observe here, we could see in this particular slide. If you observe here, we are here in this position today. And then you can see that we are growing monthly on a median average of 2.76%. And with that monthly 2.76% growth rate, it essentially means annual growth rate is close to 38%. We are growing on an annual rate of 38% of EV sales. And projecting that and extrapolating, we could see by January 30, we will have 90,000 close to EV sales you can expect in city of Chicago at that point of time after 7 or 8 years.
That's registrations, not sales, correct?
Yes, the last registrations number, what we have. Exactly, that's right. So with that, we also wanted to compare what happens in the Illinois. So today, Illinois has 11.2 million vehicles. City of Chicago has around 1.4 million. And then if you compare it with 7410 EVs as on May 2022, we are close to 1%. So essentially, how do we kind of bridge this? So all it boils down that how do we do equitable analysis, how many charging stations we can put in, and how much boost in terms of rebates and different offerings we can give it to the city of Chicago, to the citizens, so that these boosts can happen. So now that we saw the number of EV charging, EV vehicle sales, we also wanted to connect it with the growth rate of the public charging stations. How many public charging stations are idle for city of Chicago? So again, the same growth rate was assumed here to start off with, and we were trying to extrapolate for the next 10 years till Jan 2030, what will happen. So you could see that in the same extrapolation rate with the same winter forecast method, we could see that around 8,813 charging stations are needed. So again, this charging station is a combination of level 2 DC fast charge. That combination will be there, but this is the minimum number which is needed. And then I thought, let's compare where do we rank in terms of what is the industry standard. So the industry standard today, we have 10:1. It means for one public AC charger, you will have at least. And similarly, for every one DC charger, you will be having at least 100 EVs. So 100 EVs should be satisfied with one DC charge. And we are today at 10.3 on an AC charging level and 77:1 for a DC charge. So as on date, AC charging definitely needs more focus. That is one trend which we should take in. DC charge looks okay, but as the growth happens, we should focus more on DC charging, because the next estimate is moving forward. DC charge is the future, not the AC charging, because people will be trying to charge in less than 30 minutes and move forward rather than waiting for more than an hour or two. So that's the other summary which we should consider. slide. What should be the charging infrastructure mix? So definitely for slow charging at home and at work, we should have 6 or more hours of charging. We should focus on single family houses, parking garages. So that should be the kind of a mode for slow charging. Fast and slow public charging should be for hotels, restaurants, shopping malls, business centers, and so on and so forth, because they'll have like 40 to 50 kilometers of charge in an hour. That's the offering which they have today. And DC fast charge will offer definitely 280 to 300 kilometers per hour of charging. That should be the target for highways, transportation hubs, and other actions. So with that, what's the section recommendation? I just wanted to summarize so that these are the highlights for the infrastructure what we have. So we just discussed that there are 45 out of 85 zip codes and others do not. So we recommend that public charging stations should be installed in these remaining zip codes to boost the EV sales. That's the one takeaway which I wanted to communicate. The second is, as on 5th of May, 259 charging locations are available in city of Chicago. These are the zip codes which have more than 15 number and the remaining does not. So what should be the takeaway? We should normalize the public charges across each and every zip code. That needs to be considered by the city of Chicago. Level 2 charging is definitely the dominant one, and ChargePoint Network is the dominant EV service provider with more than 270 plus installations. We need to encourage more and more players so that dependency on single player is avoided. So that definitely has to be encouraged from our side. Again, which I just touched upon, that the ratio of 10.3:1. Today we should focus more on the AC charging installations. This number is great today for DC charging, but going forward, this number will change because more and more focus is on the DC charging rather than AC charging. So this also needs to be considered by City of Chicago, that we keep our number less than 10. That will be a good based on the industry standard as on today. So going forward, as the density increases, this number will come down. Maybe after 8 or 10 years, I project that we'll be landing in the range of 5:1. So that's the current estimate today. But it again depends upon what is the concentration and density after 5 or 8 years. And finally, the growth rate of 2.76, which we have. So that's the bare minimum. So essentially 8,800 is the minimum number which City of Chicago should plan now, considering the installation and maintenance of the next 8 or 10 years. If we install today, that will last for next 8 or 10 years. So that planning has to be done. And things has to be put in place so that we can handle the demand which is coming in future. So those are the key takeaways from this section. With that, I would like to hand over the mic to Yash and then take it over for the design guidelines.
Thank you, Raj. Hello everyone. I'll be talking about the design guidelines. Next, please. The first thing that is required is charging station design. So to ensure that the charging points are prominently displayed and easily accessible, there are some considerations that needs to be taken care of. The first one being bold colors. So the charging stations should have eye-catching colors so that it's easily accessible and easily visible to the customers. Second, please. The second is lamps. So all the charging infrastructure and the charging stations should have proper lighting so that it ensures that the customers do not trip and the customers have access to all the buttons and everything. It should have good stature. So charging station, the tops of the charging stations should have enough height so that it can suffice the height of the SUV or pickup trucks kind of a height. Fourth one is the cords and cables. So it's advisable that all the cords and cables are included in the charging infrastructure rather than customers bringing their own charging cords and cables to ensure that it's a hassle-free experience for the customer. The fifth one is holders for cords and cables. So it's very important that if we are providing them with cords and cables, sufficient and industry standard of holders should be provided to them to ensure that after they charge, the charging cables are not left on the floors and all. So next is clearly written instructions. So the signage should be proper and with a proper format and colors to ensure that people, the customers that are using, that are coming to this charging infrastructure have know that what level of charging are we providing, whether it's level 2 or DC fast charge. Seventh one is pricing information that is both clear and easy. So the customer should know that how much we are charging them for level 2 charging and or for DC fast charge. Next. Next, the information regarding customer service. So the customer service number, if you're providing them to say ChargePoint or ABB, the service provider number should be properly mentioned over there, so that in case of some issue, they can easily reply to those. Placemaking, branding, and marketing. So we can use the charging stations to advertise for any particular thing, so that they could get us some revenue apart from the charging revenue that we'll be getting. Next will be the surrounding areas. So it's advisable that city of Chicago should go for public places, especially where, I mean, in place of say cafeterias or movie theaters, to ensure that people go there and charge their vehicles rather than simply opening a charging infrastructure in some idle place. So this is a typical example of on-street charging uh, schematic, which we have taken from New York. So you can see over here that we have proper distance, which is mentioned over here for distance from the hydrant and distance from the curb, distance from the tree. So distance from the pathways, everything is mentioned over there. Next. So this is a typical example of off-street charging schematic. So along with signage on the floor, we have signage on the walls as well. And on the right, you can see we have signage for the disabled person. From that, we would recommend that on the bottom we have a signage which could be placed in for the disabled person, which includes both EV charging and charging facility for the disabled person. So one thing that we would recommend. And next is cord management system. So we have several kinds of cords available in the market. The first being wind up, second is self-retracting, third is elevated self-retracting, fourth is reel, and the fifth one is user supplied cord. So in case of elevated self-retracting, I would mention that in places of snow, we can have this particular cord placed over there to ensure that even during heavy snow, people have access to the electric vehicle charging equipment. And the reel and user supplied cord can be used in places where theft is prominent. I mean, in areas where which are prone to theft. So we can look for reel and user supplied cord. And the ideal length should be somewhere around 15 feet. Next. So this is a typical example of how cord location and the user display at the charging station should be. So you can see we have on the charging infrastructure, all the things I mentioned, that how many distance you have, how many kilometers you have charged, or how many miles you have charged through this infrastructure, and that's proper signage where it's mentioned that your electric vehicle is 100% charged and how much will you be charged after the fully charging. Next, please. So next we'll be talking about the installation procedure of a charging station. So there are 7 steps that needs to be taken care of. The first being determining the charging needs of the residents. So we have to ensure that we have to ask the residents, do they really require charging infrastructure at their place? If yes, how many charging infrastructure are required? The second one being hire electrical contractor or public charging station manager to ensure that a proper layout is uh, uh, given over there, so that the wiring is done in a proper way. The third one is to consult with rebate program. So if we are installing say more than 10 or 15 charging infrastructure, we could talk to some uh, charging infrastructure providers so that they would give us some rebate. The fourth one will be to notify local electric utility, say ComEd, and the other local utility that is present in Chicago, to ensure that our the infrastructure that we are installing is properly registered. Then the fifth one will be choosing charging station location. So the charging station location should be at a place that is easily accessible to both normal person and the differentially or physically disabled person. The sixth one will be to obtain permit. So city of Chicago should give permits to places that have all the proper paperwork to say any private buildings or any private places. The seventh one being installation of outlet or charging station. Once all the above steps are taken care of, the residents can go ahead or they could hire some contractor to install the charging stations. So the section recommendation that we have from this guideline section is that whatever design guidelines that we have discussed should be mandated and implemented over there. Then we should ensure that the dimensions for off-street and on-street charging infrastructure should be standardized across the city. For example, the minimum dimension should be 18 feet to 9 feet for a parking unit. Say for example, if we are installing for a physically or differentially able person, so it should go for 18 feet to 15 feet. Next is special emphasis should be given on signage for people with disability, which Chaitanya will be talking in the other section. And the fourth one will be the cords should be selected not just as per the cost, but also considering the theft and the weather. And the ideal length of the cord should be somewhere around 15 feet from the vehicle to the charging infrastructure. That's our recommendation from the section.
Yeah, is this the recommendation that your team came up with, or is this cited somewhere? Is there a manual or some other guidelines that are referenced?
So we went through different case studies of different cities, and we found that okay, I mean New York is having this particular guideline. Why they are having this particular guideline? Say San Jose was having different, so why they are having different? So we figured that when we were looking for say for dimension, that what dimension the city of Chicago has. So as of now, there is no standard dimension. We were finding everywhere it was different. So we came across that 18 feet to 9 feet is a standard dimension that should be allocated to a parking unit. Yes. Next.
Typical. I used to work in science, so I think all these
So next will be charging station types and charging standards. So as we know that there are different charging standards. So first let's see what people should go for. So for example, the average daily commute in Chicago is roughly around 22 miles, and most electric battery cars ranges are well within this range, and the drivers who charge their cars overnight should suffice this particular need. The first level of charging is we call as level 1 charging station, which has 120 volt, and it's generally used by people in their own garages. And for installation of this particular unit, it will cost somewhere around $2,500 and it generally takes somewhere around 20 to 30 hours to fully charge a typical electric vehicle. The second will be level 2 charging station, which provides a 240 volt output, and the same thing. I mean, it takes roughly around 8 to 10 hours to charge a typical electric vehicle in a level 2 charging unit, and it may cost up to somewhere around $6,000. And the most important thing that we would like to mention is that the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity at DECO is providing 50% rebate to people or to households that are willing to install level 2 charging infrastructure over their places. Next, please. The third one is the level 3 charging station, which is also called a DC fast charge. So it gives an output of 480 volts, and it may charge your vehicle in between somewhere around 30 to 1 hour. And the price for a DC fast charge would range from somewhere around 10,000 to 80,000, depending on the features that you want to add. Next, please. So this is the charging unit types based on the mounting method. So we have pedestal mount, overhanging mount, wall mount. And next we'll see that which is good for which particular scenario. So the first picture that you will see is on the streets, but it's not on a curb. So it's being surrounded by boulders to safeguard that particular infrastructure. The second one is on a curb, so it doesn't require any boulders for any protection. The third one is on a height to ensure that in snowy areas, people have access to EV infrastructure. And the fourth one is inside a garage or inside a parking lot of a facility. So you can see it's wall mounted to ensure that the space, I mean, you are not giving a particular enough space to this EV infrastructure, and a lot of space can be saved if we have this on the wall. Next, we'll talk about the charging standards. So we have different charging standards: CCS1, CCS2, CHAdeMO, Tesla, and all. So CCS1 is a charging standard that is predominantly followed in North America. CCS2 is something that is followed in Europe. So City of Chicago should standardize CCS1 charging station, CCS1 charging connectors across the city. That's our recommendation from our side. Next, please. The EV charging roadmap for battery electric vehicle OEMs. So if we see by 2023, most of the OEMs are likely to shift their power rating to 250 kilowatt and above. So if as of today we are providing them with say 100 kilowatt of facility, and we are ensuring that this 100 kilowatt of facility will be there for at least 5 to 10 years, it's better that we look into the future and provide them with at least 250 or 300 kilowatt of charging capacity to those facilities. Next, please. So section recommendation in this would be that on-street parking, if the charging equipment is on the curb, we can ignore the bollard. Otherwise, it is advisable to protect the equipment using a bollard. And for indoor parking, we can have wall-mounted infrastructure to save spaces, and we should standardize CCS1 charging standard. Next, please. Fourth would be the DC fast charge of 350 kilowatt needs to be considered going forward for installations, as life of a one station could be at least 10 years. So that's our recommendation. Next, I'll ask Chaitanya to talk about parking and signage.
So good afternoon, everyone. So let's continue with parking and signage. So we intend to study the parking behaviors for electric vehicles, and what we plan to study is initially we want to understand what parking meant for the EV owners, what were their requirements, and how would that be different from traditional the IC engine vehicles. So first, our approach was to understand the current situation and what are the issues situations that are currently being faced, and then develop something, recommend on the basis of how it can be improved further based on considering different perspectives and the current standard being followed. So you can see that currently, if you as per the Department of Energy, currently 80% of EV owners feel comfortable charging at their homes. So that is because of the, I would say, not sufficient availability of electric vehicle charging in the public charging area. So that, and the second one is definitely range anxiety, which is a very, I would say, barriers towards EV adoption. So range anxiety basically it deals with EV owners not being confident with how much and how long can they travel with the EV. That is one of the barriers. It's been a barrier since long time, and I think still until and unless we form a strong charging infrastructure across the city, this anxiety is going to still be there compared to what the traditional engine vehicles, which are gas fueled vehicles, can satisfy. Next. So when we look at parking for electric vehicles, I would term it as parking redefined. So let's consider, if you consider a case of mobile phone, if I'm not using my mobile phone, I would like you to put that as charge. So that is what basically EV can be defined parking as. If I'm parking it, I'm charging it. That's what it is going to be, I guess, as the adoption of EV increases over time. So in these terms, the location and accessibility also, these are the terms that will be very relevant when you come into the parking section of the electric vehicles. Another issue that is that I guess parking is dealing with is this has been studied in a lot of different articles, and also it's a very relevant issue currently, that even if you have a parking slot, I suppose there are 2 parking slots, and there's some vehicle park which is not charged, and you can't charge a vehicle. That is the issue currently being faced. It was initially studied, I guess, 5 or 6 years ago, but it's still relevant even now. I guess that's again due to lack of infrastructure, and people are still, I would say, in terms of not really recognizing that there are EV owners are increasing day by day, and there will be an increase to this charging infrastructure. Next. So we have studied how parking spaces should be designed for EVs. if you look at the diagram here, you can see there are three types of diagrams stating how charging stations are currently placed in a parking lot. So if you look at the first position in the diagram, you can see that there's only one charging port, but you can also only charge single vehicle at that point. Given the standard cord length, as Yash mentioned, it could hardly be traced up to the second location, which is adjacent to the current location one. But when you look at second, you can charge two vehicles there. But again, the situation is if you have only a single cord at that point, there is no point in placing it between them until and unless you have two cords to charge two vehicles. And then you come at location 3, which you can see is placed between the two parking zones. You can see that if you have proper cords, and I would say 4 cords, you can easily charge 4 vehicles from a single charging station. So these are some of the observations which have been done through a lot of studies, but still yet to be explored. And this is again next point which I would say is the smart parking lot, which would be very much helpful in developing infrastructure in city of Chicago. So what this would do is currently I would say for non EV vehicles, it would just reserve your spots. You can just park and then get by your way. But for EV vehicles where charging is very important, so there could be a standardized system which could be managed by the parking lots. There could be a parking administration which they could manage it, and then there a specific EV spots could be identified, which could be there could be a information management system that could alert the drivers that okay, this spot is empty currently, so that the driver or the whoever the EV owner is, he can directly drive to the spot, charge his vehicle. Or even if the space is not empty, if it's occupied, maybe the information system can direct it towards the another nearby location where he can charge his vehicle easily. So this is something not just for the owner and the automobile being software integrated electric vehicles, but also for the management of parking lot system, which will definitely boost the confidence of the EV owners into using more and more EVs throughout the city. And signage and wayfinding, as Yash has already emphasized, the design of design requirements. So signage and wayfinding will definitely help EV owners identify where is the parking, how to go about the parkings, and if a particular spot is only designed for EV specific space, then these are some signages and wayfindings can help to identify those. And these are some EV charging signage identified. Currently, I think Illinois is only using this signage, and we recommend that along with that, the parking space space issue which we have identified. If there is a particular symbol stating that this parking is only allotted for EV vehicles, then there is we can tackle the issue of non-EV vehicles for placing their vehicles and unnecessarily occupying the space. So this is one of the locations we studied, and as per the points stated above, I can give you a real case scenario wherein I myself visited this place, and I could see on the charging point locator that there was the charging point in this particular parking lot. But when I asked the person as to where it is, he guided me as to enter the elevator, take a ride, and you can find it to the right. I think this is the situation which is currently, which could definitely be improved by using proper signages, proper space allocations, which would make life of EV owners a bit very much easier. So this is one of the current policies into EV infrastructure building codes. So this basically states that if you are building there's a new construction, new building, or your current building is undergoing renovation or construction work, you are mandated to install a number of EV specific points in your parking lots. So this I think will be very helpful in driving the EV adoption towards higher rate. This will not only save money compared to a retrofit where currently existing designs trying to fit EV charging. This would be directly installing these charging points into new buildings would be a really step ahead into what aims to increase the EV adoption. So these are some of the cities that have already adopted this. I think Denver and City of Boulder being on the highest side. Chicago also has currently, started from the year 2020. It currently has requirements for, making it 20% EV ready, that is 5+ spaces. So going forward, as and when EV usage and EV, demand, sales and increases, I guess this could be really taken up to making it almost at least EV ready or at least EV compatible, making just, putting the equipment and making it ready for the charging space. This is one of the codes we can implement. And next is grid capacity. So as we go forward of implementing public charging into multi-unit dwellings, the demand for electricity is going to really increase. As you can see, Department of Energy predicts a 38% increase in electricity consumption just due to charging of electric vehicles. So this is something of I think when mandating the use of or the mandating the implementation of electric vehicle charging into the multi-unit dwellings, the transportation department can also work with the energy department to facilitate the increased energy demand. So these are the section recommendations for parking. Develop smart parking lots to help with range anxiety, and efficient design of parking lots charging at multi-unit dwellings, and education and awareness for increasing adoption of it. This is primarily for the multi-unit dwellings where people are not yet ready to implement EV charging into their apartments or the locality, and implement policy to increase EV specific parking areas to satisfy demand, which is stated to increase in coming years, and sufficiently boost power production to meet grid capacity. This is not directly a recommendation, but it could be into consultation with the Department of Energy. Yeah.
Sorry, I wanted to just make sure that the recommendation around the building codes, like we already have an existing requirement, so what is your specific recommendation?
So it is to increase. Currently, it states that only 5+ spaces to be allocated for EV, and that is not also to be. It is only EV ready, not specific EV space.
Right.
So if requirements could be made more stringent, and that could suppose if a particular tenant is looking for, he has an EV and looking to housing around Chicago, he'll be searching for accommodations which already have EV implemented. That would be a boost for him using EV rather than him facing trouble and going back to the traditional IC engine, which is just refueling his vehicle and walking away. So if we make it a stringent requirement for new buildings or buildings which undergo construction, this will be a boost for the EV adoption.
Just to add up to whatever he said, I was also going through different cities which they are doing in. So some of the cities which are not there in USA, such as some parts in Norway, then there are some in Dubai. They are targeting close to 40% in the next 5 years.
What is their EV penetration? Like, what is their EV penetration?
So today their EV penetration is lesser than ours, and there I would say we are at 8,000 in numbers monthly, which we roughly do 7,000 to 8,000. They are at 4,000 or 4,500. So if you do the math, they are like close to 50% of our numbers, but they are close to double our numbers in terms of the building code which they are pushing for. So is it right? Is it wrong? There is no official numbers published, but essentially based on our recommendation, what we could suggest is that number should go up at least in the next 5 years. That's the direction and takeaway which we should take. So a couple of cities here and there, they are targeting at least a 40%. You can leave California because they are close to more than I think 80 or 90. That their number is different. But except California, the other cities are at 20%, and we are leading in that. So that's good. But I think going forward, we should push that to close to a 30 or 40%. That's the direction we should take as a summary.
Next, I would like to continue with the case studies of this.
Okay. Over to you, Krupal.
So first we talk about the London. So London, as we all know, is one of the global leader in providing the electric vehicle charging network across the world. And till now, till December 2021, there are more than 8,600 charging points across the UK. And so the thing is like how they promoted the EV infrastructure and electric vehicles among the consumers. So there's the four reasons. So one is they provide the incentives towards the consumers to get to the electric vehicle and get to buy the electric vehicle. And second is about the awareness, obviously education, and in that also the accessibility. So accessibility in terms of the segregations of the electric vehicle charging point across the UK that we see in the next slide, like how the charging points get segregated across the UK. Uh, and third is about investment in the infrastructure. So how they gathered or how they gathered the funds to provide this electric vehicle infrastructure to the entire London. So that is also the one of the key takeaway that we can take should take for the city of Chicago. Fourth is they are thinking towards the another cheap and renewable energy sources, kind of the solar roof, for the providing the charging electricity for the charging in the charging point. And so this is the fourth the points which they have promoted the electric vehicle infrastructure within a London city. Next is how they prepared for that. So they provided with the smoother installations and match supply with the demand. So they gathered the information from the electric vehicle sales and whatever numbers for that electric vehicles sales for per year, and also for the electric vehicle charging point for specific zip code. And as per that, they segregated the charging point across the UK. Second is that they reduce the energy barrier, and third is that about to share knowledge and maximize the potential of the legislation. And next thing is about the stakeholders. We can see in the stakeholders there are the business improvement districts is involved. There's we can see the London first. There also we can see the transport for the London. Also the UK power network has been there. Royal Automobile Club. So main thing is that they also involve the private players in the stakeholder list to boost the electric vehicle infrastructure enter the London city and to attract the investors to make funding towards to provide these sophisticated EV charging points across the London city. That is the key takeaways from the stakeholders.
What is reduced energy barrier? Got it from right here.
So in terms of the reducing the energy barrier in terms of like they are focusing on the another source of energy like the renewable energy into solar energy. So reducing the focusing on the conventional energy which we take in the electricity, they are also looking to another how they can generate the electricity from another sources. That is that mean by the reducing the energy barrier.
So
And
essentially, what he meant here is if you are charging per kilowatt and it charges a dollar or half a dollar, and if you are adding up an energy source in terms of renewables, it usually comes down. So the amount of burden on a customer is reduced. So they are trying to find out alternatives where if I charge, I'll be not charged like 4 cents, or maybe I'll be charged 3 cents or 2 cents. So optimizing the resource so that the load on the customer is also reduced. Yeah, go ahead.
so in this slide we can see the how they gathered the funds. So they have the basically the office for the low emission vehicles, which is basically responsible for providing the funds or which have the schemes for the private or charging point manufacturer or to the taxis or the PHVs. And also the same office also responsible for providing the funds towards considering the another kind of schemes like the quality Mayor's Air Quality Fund has been there, Livable Neighborhoods been there, then London's Go Ultra Low City scheme has been there, and through these all these schemes they provide the incentives to all the electric vehicle owners. And from that we can see the takeaways is last is third is about the investors. So they do have the EV charging infrastructure investment fund, and from that fund they able to get the new fundings and to boost the electric vehicles sales among the electric vehicle owners, and also provide a sophisticated electric vehicle infrastructure across the London city. The right hand side you can see the map that how they are segregated the electric vehicle charging points across the London city, and that should take away for our city of Chicago as well as the Rajas mentioned previously that only the 3 or 4 specific zip codes have the maximum charging points, but it's not much segregated compared to the London city. Or in the next slide we can see the San Jose city how they segregated it. That in below the picture of that you can see there is a stars has been there. So the blue stars is denoted by the EV infrastructure hub. It means that EV infrastructure hub, it means that there are the 6 charging points is been available over there, and at simultaneously 6 electric vehicles they get simultaneously charged, and they do have the DC fast charging. And the EV infrastructure hub, it means that that hub is been like they use the public places, public parks, super malls, and from there they constructed or they um, make the electric vehicle charging point over there. And next slide, please. So next is about San Jose. So in San Jose, in 2018, the state of California, they set the goal of becoming the carbon neutral by 2045. And for that, the governor has already allocated the $2.5 billion to install the 250K electric vehicle charges by 2025 to get the 5 million zero emission vehicles registered by 2030. And so to promote that, in 2018, San Jose replaced their previous Green Vision project with Climate Smart San Jose project with aligned with the City of Paris Climate Action Plan, and their goal is to reduce the emission reduction by 90% by 2050 and have a goal of more than 60,000 electric vehicles registered in the city by 2025. So how they're preparing for that? So to provide, the main goal for them is to buy accessibility in the public transit infrastructure by modifying the current one, uh, have providing the personalized mobility choices, then to also focusing on the another sources of the renewable energy or the charging points that can be available to the electric vehicle owners. And in the stakeholders, again, we can see they involve the property developers, they involve the transport for San Jose offices, business improvement districts, energy providers, emergency services, and also the other private players to just to boost the electric vehicle infrastructures within the city. Next slide, please. And for the funding, there was already I mentioned previously, the governor has allocated a $2.5 billion to install the 250 electric vehicle charges by 2025. In support with that, they also had the funds for the specific to provide kind of the incentives, like the federal income tax credit for $7,500 for purchasing the EVs. They also have the tunnel and bridges tolls owned by the San Jose, which offered a 10% discounts along the throughways. And from the 2013, they already had implemented the garages and parking lots must have at least 3.8 kilowatt for at least 20% of the spots. And below we can see again there is a much more segregated of the electric vehicle charging points across the city, just similar to the London that we should I guess adopt for our city of Chicago as well. Next slide, please. So this is the recommendations. There are total 10 recommendations has been there. The first recommendation, we should focus toward the four core themes. So one is about identifying the current user demand, which we already calculated from the Raj has already been mentioned, like how much will be their electric vehicle sale by 2030 and how much electric vehicle charging point will be required by 2030. We should also provide the alternative switch for the electric vehicles, and there should be the right charge point in the right place with the proper signages, which has been mentioned by Chaitanya and Yash, and good geographical spread is, I'm again saying and saying that there should be segregating across the city of Chicago electric vehicle charging points across the zip codes. Second is about the EV infrastructure delivery plan, which defines kind of the hub, which I already mentioned from the city of the London. They do have the EV infrastructure hub, which provides the six charging points where six or more vehicles get simultaneously get charged, which include the petrol stations, motorway services, retail outlets, kind of the supermarkets, station car parks, public parks, private off-street spaces, kind of the workplace, etc. Third is about the, also we should think about the alternative source for the EV charging, kind of the ultra rapid charging points. Currently we have the level 2, but we also should think toward the ultra rapid charging point. Uh, Also, alternative power supply, energy storage in terms of the solar roofing, we can also implement just like the London city. And also we should think toward the new charging and new mobile charging formats, just similar to the Norway or the London or the New York or the San Jose that do that have. Fourth is about the product design, that it should be upgradable, easy to replace. It should be the modular and multifunctional. Next slide, please. So next is about the city of Chicago to test the installation of the on-street charging point where off-street parking is limited. So we should also think toward that. We should also exempt or reduction on the local taxes for the EV ownership, for the registration taxes, etc., and also exempt from the local use fees and tolls for the EV owners. We should also think toward the set up the charging station at targeted bus depot for being prepared for the 100% electrification of the public buses to just focusing toward the clean energy sustainable goal. Next is about the best way to grow the EV sale is to launch the building codes for the Chicago to get charged from the home possible. And ninth is about to promote the local business for EV charging station with rebate and support, so that just to boost the electric vehicle sales among the consumer. Last is about the public and private charging network to be bought under the one platform, just like we have the Ventra card, and we should have the electric vehicles charging point also be payment can be also included in the one single app for that. Next slide, please. So this is the current city of Chicago charging point. As we can see again mentioned by the Raj in the beginning of the presentation, that we have the much more focuses toward the loop. We should segregate the charging points like the city of Chicago. This is the EV infrastructure hub, which has been there in the London city, where more than six vehicles get simultaneously get charged, and they use the public places like the parks or the super malls, parking slots, something to get implement that EV infrastructure hub. Below you can see the solar roof, how they are using the solar energy to get into the electricity and to just to provide the electricity to the electric vehicle. That we can also think toward that. And next slide, please. So this is the funding source which am thinking like comparing with the San Jose, London, New York, and Norway, that we should also think toward that. First is about the impact fees, which kind of the typically one-time payment imposed by the local government on the property developer. The fees to mean the offset the financial impact on new development places or public infrastructure in the program. Second is about the community benefit fund. This is I take away from the San Jose, where they do have community benefit fund, which is established by the group of donors or through the targeted fees to support the charitable cause, just to boost the electric vehicles or infrastructure services to the city. Third is about the increase the parking cost where is appropriate. So it's just again to get to the excess funds to get support to the EV infrastructure hub. Fourth is about to provide the subsidies to the low income discount shared mobility services such as the bike share, scooter share, and car share, and just to communities just to again adopt the electric vehicles. And lastly is about like but not the least about the partnership with the universities, hospitals, chambers of the commerce, and local business associations, so that they can invest in our electric vehicle infrastructure for our city of Chicago. Hand over to Raj.
Yeah, thanks, Krupal. That was fun. Yeah. Anyway, so coming to the conclusions, just wanted to wind up here with whatever we heard till now. So we discussed on section 1 about the current Chicago current infrastructure and the recommendations on moving forward, and what needs to be done by Jan 30 and their target locations. That should be the key takeaway from section 1. To summarize on section 2, we discussed upon the design guidelines and where the details of the critical parking charging station design should be considered. We also highlighted what should be standardized and what should be included in the framework. On section 3, we discussed about the recommendations on charging station for the North America market and specifically on city of Chicago, and what should be suitable going forward in the future. Section 4, we discussed about the parking and signages, and we said that this should be a focus and also an aid to boost the EV sales going forward, and what type of signages we should implement in city of Chicago. And section 5, we discussed in terms of the different cities which they are taking in, what is their recommendations, what is their approach, and what are the different funding opportunities they have, and what city of Chicago should take into further. With that, I wanted to also discuss on the further work and acknowledgements which we have. So based on the further work, if we recollect, we discussed upon a couple of points, and these are 3 or 4 points which should also continue going forward as a further work. One, we definitely wanted to have the sales data on the EV split and understand what is the distribution across the EV sales for the medium duty and the light duty vehicles. I think that's the limitation of the data we have. So that is one thing which city of Chicago has to figure it out along with the students, that how do we segregate and take it forward so that we understand what's the contribution on the EV sales from the light duty market as well as the medium duty vehicles. So that is one area which I think we should focus. Second, on the case studies, definitely more and more case studies from different cities should be taken under consideration, and what will happen over a period of time. So today the estimation and the trend what we are trying to target is for the next 6 or 8 years as a short term, but we should also consider more and more data on different cities which are coming in, not only North American market and South American market, and of course European market, overall different markets, so that we can take the good out of different cities as well. And the next thing, which is very important on the real world data, which we are also trying to see and map it based on our physical trials. What we could see here is the real world data about charging station maintenance and durability is an issue which we foresee will happen due course of time, because based on literature survey and our physical, I would say, presence and discussion with different surveys, we could see that half of the stations were active, but again they are deactive based on their maintenance issues and all. So this is one thing which we need to understand, what is the maintenance capability and how the maintenance across different vendors and different service providers is impacting the the city of Chicago's EV sales. One is we install, we implement, because these stations will be there in the next 10 years, but how do we maintain them and continue offering the services to the residents there? So that is one thing which we should focus as a further work. And of course, what is the impact on different policies if we take any policies from different cities, how they are impacting the EV growth and charging station based on investments and considerations which we have. So these are the four key areas which I think we should continue further work to understand this. And with that, we would like to offer the acknowledgements to definitely to Professor Mark for giving this opportunity from Northwestern, and of course Mary and Samantha for patiently listening to us, and then of course providing your valuable feedback. And I would also like to extend the thanks to the other fellow colleagues and friends and students who have supported us in finishing this. With that, I would like to extend thanks and open to your questions. Thank you for listening. So just to summarize on the report which we have submitted, so that will also have indications on the revenue charging model and the basic business model which we have, definitely. So that indicates about what should be the key takeaways. Going forward, the idea here would be that we take the NPV model and then convert those into the actual business case scenarios. So that is another thing which, as a revenue model, which we should continue as a further work. So we just touched upon, but that should be the next logical way, how much we take it forward from there. So the initial estimates, what we did is 6 years, we can have a payback, considering we have an occupancy and utilization of more than 60%. So that details are given there, but that should be in further work, which you should take it forward going forward.
When you were looking at models of chargers, did you see chargers that could charge multiple vehicles at the same time?
Yes.
And what type of model, whether they were DC fast chargers only?
So as of now, level 2 and DC fast charge both have like maximum of 4 ports, but it's advisable to have at least 2 ports to one particular charging infrastructure, just to ensure that both, it's placed at one place and 2 of the cars are getting charged simultaneously. So they have maximum of 4 ports are there. Yes.
So the other thing, just to add up on Mary, was that we can offer 2, we can offer 4, and there are 6 also which are there. 6 kind of single charging station offering 6 are niche. When I say niche, they are not, they are custom built. So today, if you see, they are not available readily, and mostly 4 and 2 are being offered by the I would say charge point manufacturers, CPMs, which we call. So they have a 2 and 4 as a standardized design of an offering. But if you go for a 6, today they are not norms, so they may charge higher. So it is essentially we need to see that what is the application, what location are we targeting, and what is the intent. If we are very sure that that area will be occupied by multiple units and it is used in a charging station, one single point may be a better option rather than going for 2 charging stations with 4 charging ports.
I don't know, Mark is here. Yes. One of the concepts you mentioned with the public right-of-way charging was leveraging the infrastructure to away from home.
Yeah.
For ads.
That is somewhat similar to how a mobile app works. Say, for example, we have ads in any app. If you are having a simple, not a paid version, you have to see the ads. Even for Amazon Music, you have to listen to some advertisement. But if you go for premium model, you don't have to pay.
Advertising on the public right-of-way, what we're able to do and what we're not able to do.
We're able to do, but I'm sure there's stuff proximity to the actual shelter.
So do you want to share a little bit about the one shelter
But we have what they call consolidated street furniture program.
Mhm.
Many moons ago, the city, the whole hodgepodge of bus shelters and wayfinding, signage, if you could call it. So we were daily, late nineties, saw something in Europe and thought, let's make this attractive, but make it efficient. So I was at the CTA at the time. And we only had about 900 bus shelters in the city, and we had 2 million bus riders. So it really wasn't a lot of coverage.
Exactly.
So they went with JCD. Well, they put out an RFP, but
Okay.
JCD.
JCD,
ended up winning. We put 2,000 bus shelters in exchange for allowing them to be placed on the public way. They would sell advertising and pay city a fee. And the fee is kind of backloaded, 4 or 5 year contracts, so extensions. And then we also have newsstands. Well, those are gone by the bye-bye, those are all newsstands.
Yes.
We had, when I was at the CTA bus shelter booths, those have kind of gone by the wayside as well, because they're more vehicle. But the newspaper racks, which I also see eventually going bye-bye. They used to be static ads, and then it also allowed for what we call customer information panels. We see a lot of those on the south.
Yes.
Those were more static, and they just had panels that kind of rotated. We're going with more digital, so we're able to have more content more efficiently, change it. Before we used to have to print the posters and graphics. It was just crazy. So there are rights the co has for having a premier spot on our public way. The contracts due to expire. So I'm thinking that may be in play. So as of right now, the advertising market is not very robust because of the economy, revenues are down. So we're looking at what to do with this contract. And there's a lot of other people that are interested. We have Divvy, the benefit committee,
Yes.
Divvy. They were allowed to do some advertising on Divvy stations. It's just a lot of those big garbage cans they allow it for. So finance was trying to put out a consolidated city marketing plan. But again, they put it out kind of the wrong time with the economy. So I'm thinking if we were to do it again, from what I've read and talked to people, they'll probably start picking up again in the next year and a half. You're already seeing things getting more robust back downtown. People are coming back, but I think people are cautious as to how many are coming back. We're looking at waiving the business now, people staying at home. So there are potential opportunities for that. But right now, the market is kind of. I covered a lot of stuff real fast. I wasn't trying to get
No problem. Yeah. So
there's just a lot of things in there, and there's just so much uncertainty.
There was something that we can relate to. We commute through CTA daily through buses and CTA trains as well. So we have seen those advertisements both at bus stands and at the stations as well. And it's just that we were doing some mobile application case studies in our different subjects, and we found that is a good way to, if we could advertise on a mobile, say all our infrastructure, charging infrastructure will be digital. So it will be good to advertise over there to get some extra revenue.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything contractual.
nothing else.
Advertise that on a mobile app. And just so you guys know too, there's a lot of people who have their fingers in the pot with the advertising. So the CTA, any advertisement on train platforms, on the buses, that revenue goes to the Chicago Transit Authority.
Okay.
So if you're at the Department of Aviation, so when I was out here at Midway, our ads stayed within, the revenue stayed within the airport. Then if there's any ads in city buildings, then it comes to the city. So it's kind of complex because there are a lot of different legal entities.
Yes.
Park district has their own. So,
But still, they would have to take permission from the government, right? If they want to advertise.
so I think that there's something that, you know, obviously if you're having a vendor putting your state, for sure they have to show it, like you're talking about branding. You know, I mean, they have to, how else? You know, so it's not.
Yes.
Considered advertising. Gas station guys with that, they have to identify. I think
Or there could
that's-
actually be ads placed on those
Yes.
screens
Yes,
too,
please.
yeah.
And then those can be contractual and
Yeah.
I mean, for 1 day or 2 day kind of ad as well. Like different. Say for example, you have for today there was like for gun violence you are wearing orange color, so those things could have been advertised on
Yeah,
those.
so it's conflict. So just your basic branding and what you're doing.
So Sam and I, we have an exciting meeting at 1, we're meeting with the utility to talk
Okay.
about EVs.
Okay.
So I have to run out to be there for it. But wanted to thank you all. I know it's been a sprint.
Yes.
We really appreciate it. This will be, you know, Sam and I are writing up the RFP to do a broader consultant study, and so this is a good base for them to build on. I'll email you all just requests for certain files and data.
Yes, please.
Analysis, et cetera, that you did, just so we can have it to give to the consultants. I'll put that email there so you know specifically, and just again, thank you so much.
No problem.
Really
No problem. Really appreciate
it.
Yeah, मेरे को बोल फोटो लेना करके.
No, very impressive. So,